All right, let's jump right in. Outsourcing your company's finance. We're talking payroll, accounting, the whole shebang. It feels like such a smart move, right? It promises all this amazing expertise, incredible efficiency. It's supposed to let your team really focus on what matters. But what happens when that promise just shatters? Well, today we're going to break down exactly how you can master your outsourced finance using one absolutely critical tool, strategic governance.
So on one side of the coin, you've got this amazing promise, right? You get to tap into world-class experts, you can scale your operations up or down in a snap, and your team gets to focus on the big picture. It sounds perfect. But on the other side, the peril is very real. And I mean, we're talking about the stuff of nightmares here. Catastrophic data breaches, massive compliance failures, and the kind of hit to your reputation that, well, it can literally sink a company.
So that's the million-dollar question, isn't it? How do you get all of that good stuff, all that promise, without opening the door to those catastrophic risks?
Well, the answer, and really the whole point of what we're talking about today, comes down to two simple words: strategic governance. And let me be clear, this is not about more paperwork or boring meetings. It's the actual framework that takes outsourcing from a roll of the dice, a gamble, and turns it into a controlled, transparent, and super valuable partnership.
And this gets us to what I like to call the outsourcing paradox. It kind of feels a little backwards, but here it is. To successfully let go of a critical function, you actually need more strategic control, not less. I know, it sounds weird, but let's break down exactly what that looks like.
Okay, here's a really easy way to picture this. Think of your organization as the pilot of an airplane. Your outsourcing partner, they're your co-pilot. Now, they're great. They're handling a lot of the controls, they're executing the maneuvers, but you're the pilot. You are always, and I mean always, the one who is ultimately responsible for where that plane is going and making sure it gets there safe.
So how do we actually build this thing, this governance structure? Well, like any strong building, it all starts with the foundation. And that foundation is one thing: absolute, crystal clear ownership. Okay, if you only take one single thing away from our chat today, please let it be this: outsourcing does not mean delegating accountability. Let me say that again. You can outsource the task, you can outsource the process, but you can never, ever, ever outsource the final responsibility.
So how do you make this accountability official? You can't just hope for it. This is where a role called the internal process owner becomes absolutely essential. And no, this is not just some contact person or a name and an email signature. This is a dedicated leader inside your own company who truly owns the outcome, who manages that relationship, and who is the one person you can point to who is accountable for how that outsourced function performs.
Okay, so what does this actually look like day to day? Well, first, you formally assign that internal owner we just talked about. Second, you have to build super clear escalation paths. So when something goes sideways, and it will, everyone knows exactly who to call and when. There's a playbook. And third, you make sure your senior finance leadership, your CFO for instance, keeps that final oversight. The whole goal here is to get rid of any and all gray areas, no ambiguity.
All right, once that ownership is locked in, we can zoom in on the day-to-day stuff. I mean, how do you stay in control when the actual work is happening somewhere else? Well, it all comes down to specific, concrete daily controls.
A classic and frankly non-negotiable control here is the segregation of duties. It's simple. One person or one team creates a transaction. A totally different person has to independently approve it, and then a third person or system comes in and reconciles it. This simple three-step dance is what prevents a single point of fraud or failure.
And that basic idea applies to a bunch of other essential controls. We're talking about maker-checker rules. One person makes a journal entry, someone else has to check it. It means being really strict about who can access your systems. Your payroll person does not need to see your strategic financial models. It also means you're constantly reviewing who has access to what, and you're documenting absolutely everything, creating a rock-solid audit trail.
But hey, controls are only half the story, right? How do you actually know if they're doing a good job? That's where key performance indicators, or KPIs, come in. A great example is close cycle time. Basically, how long does it take to close the books every month? You're really aiming for under 5 days. And this isn't just about speed. It tells you a ton about your partner's efficiency and how disciplined their process is.
And here's another huge one, the error rate. You want this to be less than 1% for sure. This is tracking how many transactions had to be redone because of a mistake. It's your #1 measure of quality and accuracy. See, when you have metrics like these, you get a real data-driven picture of performance. No more guessing or just going on feelings. You have the cold, hard fact.
Okay, so daily controls are vital. Got it. But really great governance is also looking down the road. It's about building a partnership that can last, one that's resilient enough to handle all the changes and curveballs that are definitely coming your way. Let's say compliance, for example, a massive area of risk. This table breaks down who owns what. For something like tax law, look, your organization always has the final accountability. Your provider can help, sure, but the buck stops with you. For data privacy, like GDPR, you set the policy, they have to stick to it and report back. It's a defined shared responsibility. And this really points to a huge shift in mindset. Good governance is proactive, not reactive. You're planning for disruption before it happens. What's the business continuity plan if your provider has a major IT outage? What's the plan for switching to a new partner if you have to? A strong framework has these transition and exit strategies figured out from day one, not when you're already in the middle of a crisis. And this brings us to probably the most important idea of all:
Governance is not a set it and forget it kind of thing. It's a living, breathing framework. In year 1, it might need to adapt as your business grows. In year 2, you're plugging in new technology. By year 3, you're updating it for new regulations. It has to keep evolving right alongside your business.
So, after all this work, you've defined the ownership, you've embedded the controls, you're planning for the future. What's the actual payoff here? What's the big transformation you can expect to see?
Well, it's pretty stark. Without governance, your outsourcing relationship is just transactional. It's super risky, and you're always being reactive, just putting out fires left and right. But with strategic governance, it becomes truly strategic. It's fully controlled, and it is incredibly resilient. You basically get to go from playing defense to playing offense.
And that, ultimately, is the real goal. Strong governance turns outsourcing from just a simple move to save some money into a powerful, strategic tool. It builds a rock-solid foundation of financial integrity, operational resilience, and just complete and total trust in your numbers.
So, I'll just leave you with this one question to chew on. When you really look at your own operations, is your outsourcing just a calculated risk that you're kind of hoping works out? Or is it a truly controlled strategy designed for success right from the very start? Because that difference, well, that's everything.